Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Learn with Jason. Today on the show, we are bringing in Sebastian Aigner. Thank you so much for being here today. How are you?
Hey Jason, how's it going? I'm actually really good. I mean, it's been a long day. Being in Europe, it's like 6:30 now. Yeah, no, it's pretty great.
You're on your what, third, fourth event today? You're just all over the place.
Yeah, this is the third event. I'm really trying to embrace all this, new media, as they say. No, we're
All right.
doing a bunch of like internal live streams these days. We have a podcast, and yeah, I'm involved in all of that. So
Got to keep it busy, right? Yeah, the new world of trying to do like DevRel and kind of outreach stuff when you're not able to travel and be in person is just a whole lot of staring into a camera lens.
yeah, it really is. It's incredible. Like we've had a bunch of events where you really you start to realize how much you feed off the energy of the crowd. And when you're just talking to a camera and you make a joke and you have no idea whether it lands or if like you're just like doing like some cringe-worthy stuff. It's tough. You just gotta power through.
This is my whole life, right? Is I taught myself that I'm very, very funny because I don't get any feedback, so I just had to believe. So I just stand in front of the mirror and tell my jokes, and I laugh at my own jokes. So I'm convinced now that I'm the funniest person on the planet, and I'm really scared to go back into society and realize that I'm wrong. So I might just stay inside, tell jokes to myself for the rest of the time.
I mean, hey, whatever works, right?
But yeah, so for folks who aren't familiar with you, do you want to give us a little bit of a background on yourself?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I'm sure there's a lot of people who aren't familiar with me. Let's not kid ourselves here. I got like what 1,500 Twitter followers. Weird flex. No. Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Sebastian. I'm a developer advocate at JetBrains. We at JetBrains build a lot of tools which you might be familiar with, maybe not. If you're coming from the kind of web corner, we build Webstorm, PHP Storm. If you're coming from like the Java corner, we're building Intellij, but we also have stuff like PyCharm for Python, CLion for C and C++, and a whole bunch of other things. And last time I counted, it was like 26 products plus like our cloud infrastructure with like continuous integration, all this kind of stuff. But yeah, I specifically focus on the Kotlin programming language, which is something that we're building at JetBrains, kind of to fit our own needs first of all, and then also to kind of really provide the community with a great new programming language. Yeah, and it's kind of funny how I got into JetBrains because I started kind of doing events for them at universities and just kind of teaching people, and then at some point I was like, well, I was at a crossroads and I was like, I could continue studying or I could start doing this full time. And yeah, here we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's I mean, I like that path in, right? Where it's kind of you're doing a thing and you can see you like start to find something that you enjoy that you maybe were just doing, you thought like temporarily, and it's like, actually, you know what, this could be my job. Like, what if this is just what I did?
Yeah.
That's kind of how I feel sometimes when I realize that through whatever twist of fate, I've sort of become an internet TV show host. It's like, yeah, definitely didn't have that on my dream board.
Yeah, but this is honestly, it's the same for me. Like I never thought that you could make a living like giving talks and like doing tutorials for people around certain technologies. I just never had that on my radar as well. I was always focused on being like, okay, I'm going to become a software engineer. I'm going to write code, and it's going to be that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, twists of fate. Sometimes things go really well. Yeah.
And so you focus a lot on Kotlin specifically, right?
Yeah, right.
And so Kotlin, I think, is for a lot of us, especially in this audience, I think a lot of folks are primarily web focused. So Kotlin is one of those names that I've heard, but I'm not really familiar with like what it's used for. So could you maybe talk a little bit about what's the problem space that Kotlin came in to solve, and you know, what got you excited about it?
So this is kind of interesting because the problem space Kotlin came in to solve and the problem space Kotlin really excelled in are kind of different.
Oh, interesting.
because so we started building Kotlin almost 10 years ago now, almost to the dot. We have a couple 10-year anniversary events coming up inside JetBrains, because we are traditionally a Java shop. So all of our 26 products, they were all built in Java. They're desktop applications, and they're huge code bases, multiple millions lines of code. And at some point you run into the limitations of the language, and also kind of the language evolution, right? We have a lot of new trends with functional programming, immutability, concurrency, all these kind of topics. And at some point, pretty much we thought like, hey, we need a better language that allows us to continue working on our products that were all already written in Java, but do it in a more modern style. So what Kotlin really is, or what Kotlin really started out for us, was a 100% Java compatible modern programming language, which you could use just general purpose, build desktop applications, build server applications, and so on. When it really kind of took off and kind of got exponential growth was when Google, like 2 or 3 IOs ago, announced that Kotlin would be, next to Java, the only officially supported programming language for building Android applications.
Mm-hmm.
And I think 1 year after that, they announced that Android was going Kotlin first, meaning that all their documentation, all their materials were guaranteed to have samples in Kotlin, and maybe they'll also have samples in Java. But yeah, that set a very clear course, and of course that really helped us also with kind of pushing adoption, because once you have like really big global players like Google buy into the language, I mean, it gives people the peace of mind that it's not gonna go away from from one day to the next.
That's I mean, and what a cool endorsement too, when you get buy-in from a company at that scale to say, yeah, we're going to move, how many developers get moved over to Kotlin when they make that choice. Like it's that's exciting.
Funnily enough, traditionally, so I'm not an Android developer at all. So I'm my story is kind of simple. Like I started writing Java code just on like during university. I was, building server-side applications, building all kinds of things. Then I got into this course where we were building iOS apps with Swift. And after that, I kind of went back, like after all that was over, I couldn't write Java anymore, because I was like, wow, I've kind of tasted like there's modern languages. There's new stuff out there. There's better ways to do things than how we do them in Java. And so I looked around and I found a bunch of like different alternatives. But Kotlin stood out to me because it gave me the immediate premise of like, hey, everything you know about Java, like everything you know about the ecosystem, like it translates 1-to-1 over. But you get to enjoy all these cool new things and like all these modern paradigms.
Nice. That's super exciting. So there's a couple questions in the chat that I think are good, which is Kotlin because Kotlin is Java, that means that it's mostly a backend language, right?
See, so this is kind of funny because we have a bigger vision for Kotlin. So Kotlin for us is really just a general purpose programming language. As I said, we at JetBrains are building desktop applications with Kotlin. So all of our development environments, they are written in a mix of Java and Kotlin.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, we're also building server-side applications. People are building mobile applications with it. But we are also doing something called Kotlin Multi-Platform, which is the idea that, Kotlin code is compatible with Java, but it's not a Java dialect. It's its own language, which means we can also compile it to native code through Kotlin Native, where, at the end of the whole process, an x86, x64, Apple M1 binary falls out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And we also have something called Kotlin JS, which is our tool to kind of take the whole programming language and bring it either into the browser or into a Node.js environment.
Yeah. So this is actually this is kind of what got me excited about this is so what you're proposing here is that we can use Kotlin, which started out as a kind of like a dialect of Java. And now we can use that and all of the type safety and the autocomplete and all the things that come with using, the JetBrains IDEs around this stuff. And we'll look at those in a bit. But we get all that in the browser for our web applications. Like we can build web applications with this type of backend language. That's really exciting. And I think that one of the things that like I am an unapologetic JavaScript fan. I think that JavaScript is great. However, I do think that it's problematic that JavaScript has for a long time been the only real option if you want to build for the web. And so one of the things that I'm excited to see is more languages entering the space where you're seeing like, Rust is starting to figure out how to build web tooling and we're seeing like, so here's Kotlin making it so that you can write web applications with Kotlin instead of with JavaScript, and JS becomes a compilation target instead of the thing you have to write. And that opens up some really fascinating opportunities because now you can build for the web, but you don't have to be a JavaScript developer to do so. That seems like it's a step in the right direction, right? Like competition in this space seems like a very good thing.
Oh, absolutely. But I think we're dreaming even a little bit bigger than that, because with this whole concept of Kotlin Multi-Platform, the idea at the end of the day is if you've written it in Kotlin, you can run, like if it's pure Kotlin, you can run it on any of the targets, which means you can define. Yeah. So for example, you could have a server that runs on the JVM because you want like really high performance, high throughput. And you have a web front end, which runs on Kotlin JS. But you only write, for example, your form validation logic. You only write it once. And you just kind of pull that in on the back end on the JVM, on the front end in JavaScript. And you only have to write it once. You only have to test it once. You get the same behavior on two platforms, on two extremely like different targets. That's
very cool. And is that so? This is a big question, but that always feels like a promise that seems too good to be true. Like it's I feel like we saw this a little bit with React Native, where they were like, oh, you can write React Native and it'll work on devices and it'll work on the web. And when you actually start to see that play out, it's not as like it works, but there's more finagling than you maybe want. And it starts to get into this, like, that it works for 85% of the way, and then 15% of it is working around these inconsistencies. And so I'm curious, like, is Kotlin seeing that same challenge where when you're writing your Kotlin code and you're compiling to 6 different targets, are you seeing that similar kind of like, oh, it worked on most of them, but we got to go add this edge case in to deal with this thing?
Yeah. So I think there's at the current point, there's a fundamental philosophy difference between things like Xamarin or React Native and Kotlin Multi-Platform. Because the idea with Kotlin Multi-Platform is not you build the same application once and then you run it everywhere. The idea is you write out your business logic once. So the things that are specific to your application. And then when you have stuff that is particular to each individual platform, you can just kind of tie into that. So if you're going to be building, for example, an iOS application with kind of this whole multi-platform story in mind, you really just you write a framework or a library in Kotlin that abstracts away like your main tasks. But your whole user interface, you build it in Swift UI, or you build it with the Xcode interface builder, or whatever you want. So you get a completely kind of native application. You can integrate natively with the camera API, Maps API, whatever. But the part that is like truly common, that you also like believe is common, that doesn't depend on any platform stuff, that's the part that you can abstract away.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. I like that. And that does really make sense to me, that, if you know your business logic is consistent, having it in a way that's actually shareable cross-platform, so that you're not having to port it to, I've been in teams where, we had the Java library, and then we had to write the Node version of that, and then we had to write the PHP version of that because we had different systems. And it meant
Right.
that when we had logic changes, we had to go make those changes in 3 or 4 or more different languages.
Exactly. So
this is very promising.
Exactly. So think about if you have to target, like, especially if you are a library author, I think this is kind of nice, because let's say you're building an API wrapper for your checklist application or whatever. And you want to say, okay, I want Android developers to be able to use this. I want JavaScript developers to be able to use this. I want iOS developers to be able to use this. What are you going to do? You're not going to, you don't want to write it 3 times. You don't want to keep it consistent 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
You write it once, and you get exported interfaces from this kind of common language, which I think is quite exciting.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm in. You got me. I want to start writing some of this. So let's go ahead and switch over into the pairing view, and let's do a quick shout out to our sponsors. We've got Rachel with us today doing live captioning as we go. Where's you gonna? Whoops. What is this? Hello? You gonna do the thing? Why does it think that it's tomorrow?
Time travel.
Oh no. Oh no, my thingy. What have I done? Oh god. Did I break my website? Okay, everybody, I broke my website, which means I need to do a quick search for the let's see. There's an iframe that we can look at so that you can see the live captioning. And I am very sorry about this. Give me just 1 second to get this figured out. We're going to, where's the live player? And here is the actual iframe. So yes, I apologize, but you can still see the live captioning. It's happening right here in the window. So that is that's a bad link. That should still work, even if it's not.
That is a funky link.
That's a terrible link. I apologize. But this, you should be able to see, even if the styles don't look exactly right. But you'll be able to see we've got white coat captioning doing live captioning for us right here. You can follow that link to see it. And that's made possible through the support of our sponsors. We've got Netlify, Fauna, Auth0, and Hasura all kicking in to make this show more accessible to more people, which I really appreciate. It means a lot to me. And I will figure out what I did wrong so that this works by next show. Today we've got Sebi on the show, so make sure you go and follow him, Sebi_IO.
That's me
on Twitter. Learn all the good Kotlin things, and we're going to be talking about Kotlin Lang, but specifically today, because it's probably the most hope that we have for me, is we're going to talk about Kotlin for JavaScript. So this is Kotlin/JS, and now
that's a lot of pop-ups.
Okay.
Cookie laws.
Now we've got a whole other thing. I'm using a new IDE today, and this is Intellij Idea, which I have used exactly long enough to let's see, what did we do to set this thing up? I downloaded it. I installed some indexes, like common indexes, just so that it would go faster. We downloaded them ahead of time, and I believe that's all I've done inside of this.
Yeah, we created one project and pressed run once. That's pretty much it.
We did like the hello world code to make sure that it was going to run on my computer. That's about how far we got. So let's see, what can we use a light theme? Say you have a bright idea.
I mean, if you want to, you can press Shift twice. That should put up the search everywhere window. Just Shift twice.
Okay.
And then you can go for quick switch theme, or I think it's, if you type quick, it's going to give you a switcher that's going to be even faster. Ooh. Quick switch scheme, and then you do color scheme, editor color scheme, the top one. And then you can do classic light. And for the entire IDE.
Oh, look at it go.
There we go. Bright idea.
All right, we've got a bright idea.
I love it. So, by the way, before we dive in, I think someone in the chat mentioned that they actually have a Kotlin multi-platform use case in their application. I'm not sure. Unfortunately, it's scrolled away by now. But someone said they were using Kotlin multi-platform. Maybe that's interesting for a couple other people.
Yeah. Let me see if I can find. I don't see it.
No.
People are talking about that it can target a bunch of different platforms, but I don't see. Somebody asked about targeting WebAssembly. Is that possible?
The short answer is we're working on it.
Got
So
it.
not quite yet, but it's another very interesting target, I think, for us. There we go. That's the comment.
Ah, there, Sam Hamburger. Oh, sorry, I did just see. I scrolled right past that one. Okay, so using multi-platform to execute a lot of shared business logic and extract away from our independent client apps. Therefore, clients are ensured to be more aligned, and future changes to this logic only need to be made in Kotlin.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're going for.
Excellent.
I'm glad people are already embracing it.
All right, well, I'm ready. Let's write line 1 of Kotlin here. So if I'm getting ready to start, what should I do?
All right. So, well, you've already set up Intellij Idea, which is the most important step, right? Intellij is our free IDE, actually. So there is also an Ultimate Edition, which you have running, but you can do it with the Community Edition just fine. And yeah, that's our development environment, which comes pre-bundled with the Kotlin plugin, which gives you all the things from code highlighting to completion, to all kinds of fancy navigation. You know, we're a tooling company, so this is kind of our bread and butter, is to provide you with good tools, right? And from there, we can start a new project by just going to like file new project. Right now, I think we still have an old JVM project open, so yeah. And we'll go to, we have Kotlin here. We can give it a title.
Let's see. So I probably want to, this is something I can put on like GitHub, right? So I can just move this around.
Yeah, absolutely. We actually even have integration for GitHub. So both for Git and for GitHub in the IDE. Nice little UI. I mean, that's kind of a bit beyond Kotlin, but...
it wants me to create a new one. Let's, okay, so let's do... Kotlin JS.
Sounds great.
Okay. So then I can just, do I name them? Oh, I see how it's going to go. You're going to...
Yeah, you could just give that a name. And then if we scroll down a little bit in the templates, we can start with maybe just a browser application for now, but you can see we have a couple of templates. We have browser, we have React, and we have Node.js.
Okay.
And also something dropping in the next iteration is going to be Compose for Web, which is a really fancy way of sharing user interface code between Android and web. But again, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
Let's just add a project JDK, whichever one you have installed, just to be safe. That's just
it looks like I have 2.
Yeah, adopt OpenJDK is perfectly fine.
Okay. Anything else I need to set here?
No, you can unfold the artifact coordinates to have a look. That's just kind of how packages are being named. But yeah, that's already all pre-filled.
Okay.
It's all good.
All right.
So let's click next. And now we have, we can just select the template again, test framework. It does not really make that much difference. We could be a little bit fancier than usual, and we can turn on IR compiler. That's our new compiler that's currently in alpha. I like to live dangerously, so let's do that one.
Okay, let's do it.
And you know what? Why don't you turn on use Kotlin X HTML as well? And then we can talk at length about what all of these features do.
Okay, so then finish?
Yeah, just finish this. I
would
Sam,
like to open it.
Yep. Sam says they would love to see ECMAScript 6 support. Yeah, absolutely valid. So we're currently working on a bunch of things with the new IR compiler. And one of the most exciting things, I think, is TypeScript exports. So you just get TypeScript definitions from your application if you build them as like a library for somewhere else. All right, so let's just make sure that everything works. This indexing should hopefully not take too long.
Oh, it's already done. Okay.
Wonderful.
And so that's what happened here with this build and this Gradle is I barely noticed it, but there's an indexing operation that happened here. So Can you talk a little bit about so for those of us who come from JavaScript, where like JavaScript just gets compiled by the browser.
Yeah.
We don't see a lot of this kind of stuff. So what's happening in the Kotlin world when this starts?
Yeah, right. So when you first start when you first open a Kotlin project, or generally any project in IntelliJ, it can also be a Java project. Our main goal is for the next couple of hours to provide you with the best experience, right? Which means autocomplete, which means navigation, which means super fast search across all your documents. So what we do is we create kind of a search index. So we read the file, like your build files, which in our case is Gradle, but it's like you could compare it to like Webpack or any other kind of build system. And from there on, we kind of create these like binary representations and trees and whatnot. That honestly goes over my head. There's a couple smart engineers doing that, which is going to allow you to see code in beautiful colors. And when you type a dot behind an object, it's going to show you all the methods and all the extensions and so on. So you can navigate to the source folder if you'd like and open, there's probably a demo file in there, in the main Kotlin, and then there's a client KT. And I think that one is pre-filled. Let's have a look.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So looking at this, let's see what I can intuit. So we're importing from Kotlin X. And Kotlin X is it said it was a DSL for writing type safe HTML, right?
Exactly.
So in order to use different features of that, we are able to we have to import these. And this is a kind of like a
it's like a package structure. So it's just kind of, or I guess you could think of it as like namespaces maybe.
And each of these packages, these are kind of like bundled. So this is another thing that's kind of unusual coming from the JavaScript world is I don't have to install this. It's just like it knows how to go and get it for me if I say that I want it.
So partly yes, partly no. So some of these features are bundled like right with the application. But if you go into your build.gradle.kts file, you can see that Kotlin X HTML under the dependencies block in line 15 is actually an external dependency.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah. So this one is an external dependency that we pull in from Maven, or Maven Central, which is just the NPM equivalent, right? It's a central repository where packages live in the JVM and in the Kotlin world.
Got it. Okay. Cool. No, that makes sense. And so this one is a built-in, and these ones we imported from an external dependency.
Yeah. So if you want to, and you actually want to see where things come from, you can hold you're on macOS, right? Yeah.
I am.
You can hold the command key and click on node. You can pretty much click on anything, and that's going to send you to where that is defined.
Nice. Okay. And so this is like the whole.
Right, it's like kind of the source code that's
interface definition, yeah.
Exactly. Right,
cool.
So now you're kind of
cool.
like inside the standard library. You can even see in the top bar, it kind of tells you where you are. So if you click on that again, it tells you like Kotlin standard library JS version 1.4.32. Yeah,
that's super helpful. Like I love the idea of a standard library, and you know, in JavaScript it's magic. Like we've got the globals, but they're kind of abstracted so far away inside the browser that it's harder to see like what's going on unless somebody has built the TypeScript definitions and put those somewhere for us. So this is kind of interesting. Like I like this model. It's unfamiliar to me, but I can see immediately how valuable it is to be able to say, okay, so what's in the document? And then I just click on this and go look at it, and I can, kind of see what's in here. Like that's pretty dang cool that we can do that. But all right, so looking at this, then going further with my intuiting, we've pulled in all the libraries we want to be able to use, and so I'm assuming that like by pulling in this div, I'm able to use that here, and by pulling in append, I'm able to use that. Node here, document is here, window is here. So basically, any globals that we want to use, we just have to like let Kotlin know that what we're using.
Yeah, but I mean, realistically, you're not going to write those yourself. You're just going to type things out, press enter, and the appropriate import statement's going to get added by your IDE, right? That's
what?
Yeah. Oh, is that not familiar to you?
No, that's not. I mean,
Can't
VS
you do
Code
the same
does
thing
that
in Typescript and stuff?
Sometimes I feel like it works 80%. You know, it's very much like an Anchorman. It's 60% of the time it works every time.
Okay. Yeah, so I have to say, so for example, you should maybe give Webstorm a try then, actually, our web IDE, because this is the way. So I get thoroughly confused with how to import things in JavaScript. Like, I am just like, when is there like squiggly brackets around it? When is there I don't know, when do I import something with a name? When is it as? I don't know. There's so many like different ways. In Webstorm, I can do the same thing as I can do in Kotlin, which is I type the thing. They're like, oh yeah, like we analyzed your NPM dependencies. We know that like in that React module that you imported, that component exists. You're like, press enter. It adds the correct line. I don't even have to think about it.
Nice.
Yeah. So same thing here.
Okay. So looking at this, then we are going to, when the window loads, we are looking at the document.body and we're running a function called say hello. The function say hello is going to append a div with the text hello from JS. Is that a correct reading of this code?
Well, the question is, where does it append to, Jason?
I'm assuming the document, right?
Yeah, so what you actually see here is already, man, our code is really like throwing you off the deep end. What you're seeing here is not just a basic function, because a basic say hello function would just be fun say hello. What you have here is a function with a so-called receiver type, right? So it says, if I have an object of type node, which your body would be, for example, right? That's a node in your HTML DOM tree. Then I can call say hello on that object. So you extend the functionality of node with your own function.
And so I can't just call this on like whatever dot say hello. It has to be has to be something defined, and we can already see it's unhappy with me.
Yeah, exactly.
And if it wasn't a node, like if I create a local variable, it's still unhappy. Let's see what it tells me.
Yeah, so even if you have some, like, as long as it's not a node, that's not going to work. Exactly.
Yeah. So that's, I mean, this is super helpful. And so to see this in action, if we want to run this,
so this is okay. So this is, by the way, the page that your code just gets embedded in. It's nothing special, right? It's the same as like single page applications every day. Just an empty page with a script that loads at some point.
Okay.
So actually, for some reason, the default is browser production run. But if you go to the top, there's the little elephant in the top bar, right? And you can switch this to development run in continuous mode.
Okay.
And then you press the little play button. And now what's happening is that the whole machinery like kicks into play. We have a bunch of infrastructure in the background which abstracts away things like NPM. So it has its own Yarn installation. You can run this on a system that doesn't have Yarn installed. Nice. No problem. It pulls its own thing in, pulls its own dependencies in, no problem. It has its own Webpack installation and its own Webpack configuration. Note that we did not have to write any Webpack configuration, which is always a plus. I do not want to write Webpack configuration. But yeah, at the end of the day, we still get it should pop open
it did pop open, but it opened in my other browser, so I'm gonna close that one over here, and here's where we ended up. We are hello from JS.
Wonderful. And of course you can inspect element on that and you'll see that it's exactly what we wrote, which is it's a div which contains, I think, a p. It doesn't even contain a p.
Just plain old text.
Yeah. Well, so we could add a p tag inside here, of course. You could probably figure out how that might work. So
yeah, let's see what I can do here. I'm going to add a paragraph tag.
Yeah, so the one thing that you're going to benefit from is typing a little bit slower, because then you're going to see what the IDE actually like tells you.
Okay, I will stop trying to go fast here. Let's see what happens. So let's go. I'm going to go to a P.
So if you just type a P without any, okay, go back once again. Let's see. All right, and here we can see that it knows a bunch of things, including these like nice P tags. Yeah, exactly. So you can click one of those, or you can select them with
probably the HTML element seems like the one I want.
Yeah, that seems about right.
And then I want to move this into it.
Yep.
And then is this a white space sensitive language, or like is what I'm doing here fine?
It is not, and it is the best thing ever. But if you want to have nice formatting again, you can press Command Option L, and that's going to auto format your code for you. Well, it's already formatted.
Already formatted.
If you want to have it in like the multi-line style, you can like add an Enter key, and then if you press Command Option L again, it'll rearrange the parentheses as they're supposed to be.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, there you go.
There it goes. Okay, and we can already see that it did the thing. Like over here, we've got here's our div, here's our hello from JS. Let me make that a tad bit bigger so that people can see it. And so we've now written some JavaScript, and so, or I guess some HTML. This is a very good hello world. But I think that we can both agree that if this was all we were trying to do, this is a pretty long walk for that. So if we want to go further to really start to see where Kotlin shines, what should we do next here?
Okay, so how about we just do a bunch of like collection stuff? So we'll just we'll create some kind of object, we'll filter it, and we'll maybe print out a nice like unordered list or something in HTML. Okay, how about that?
Yeah. Okay. So I have, if we need it, all of my episodes are in a JSON file, so we just have like, this is the big list of 200 episodes if we want that, or
okay.
we can also get whatever.
Let's start by just creating a bunch of Kotlin objects first, and then we can go to that in a little bit.
Okay, cool.
Because I think, yeah, there's probably some ways to do that elegantly, but I just like, let's focus on some of the language concepts before we start pulling in some other stuff.
All right, so, I will contain my excitement.
I mean, honestly, it's great that you are so excited. Like, there's so much stuff to learn, and for me, funnily enough, I actually learned web development, or a large part of it, using Kotlin JS. Just kind of weird. I didn't know. Yeah. I didn't know React before I wrote Kotlin JS, so I learned it. You need to bang your head against the wall a couple of times, but then you can go through the official tutorials with Kotlin JS, and it works.
Yeah.
Okay, so well, I guess we can create like a small data model of what could constitute like some of your episodes. Why not? So let's just have so the way we do this in Kotlin, it's a classically object-oriented language, right? So we have classes. So let's create a class called episode. Yeah, starts with a capital E as per classic. Wonderful. Now, how do we define parameters? Funnily enough, when I talk to Java developers, they always kind of get the shivers, because this usually means it's like 100 lines if you want to add like 4 parameters, because you add the parameters, you add a constructor, you add getters, you add setters, you add a copy method, you add an equals method. Yeah, enterprise. No, the way we can do it in Kotlin is you just open a parenthesis.
Somebody pull that as a sound effect. Wait, enterprise.
Yeah, please do. I'd love it. Yeah, so you can actually regular parentheses are enough for the time being. You don't need curly braces.
Okay.
Yeah, and now we can define the properties that are supposed to be in here. So let's say it has a title. So what we can say is val.
Oh, val.
Yeah, val. And then we do title, and then we do colon, and we give it a type, which is a string with a capital S. That's the one. And I guess we could also give it a number. So see if you can figure that one out. Actually, the type is called int then, not number.
Is it?
It's comma.
Comma.
And we'll talk about why that is comma in just a second.
Let's see. I don't think I have any kind of like numbers on these.
Numbers?
I have IDs.
Everything's strings these days.
I know.
Everything.
I know. I have dates.
But who wants to work with dates?
Fair enough.
I mean, we're doing some stuff actually for doing like multi-platform date management because we want to abstract that away. Let's assume for now.
We can just make up an ID, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's going to be a number, you said? Okay.
Yeah. Well, let's make it an int. Actually, let's make it a whole number, right?
Int.
Int. Exactly. That's the one. Wonderful. And that is a whole class in Kotlin. Like that's all you need.
So we don't have to define anything.
No, you don't. Like this is the smallest thing that you might possibly need.
So then if I wanted to like create one, so I call it ep, then do I do like new ep? I don't know how to write Kotlin at all, so I'm just making stuff up here.
Yeah, but you see how it kind of looks like a function? You invoke it just like it would be a function. So you just do val ep equals episode.
Episode. And now, are you going to give me autocomplete?
Well, if you if you spell it correctly, it might.
Episode. Yeah, that'll do it. All right. All right.
But
so
this is why I love statically typed languages. If something is red, I can immediately stop and I can say, like, what's happening? What did I break? It's never a situation of finding this out like 10 minutes down the line when we press the run button, right? That's right. I think that's lovely.
And this one I just so happened to know was episode 200. So we're on 201 today.
Nice.
So are these white space sensitive? Like, can I break these up?
Nothing is white space sensitive. We also have trailing commas.
I love a trailing comma.
So yeah, it's all good. And actually, the fun thing is, I find this super interesting seeing you write this for the first time with like really little input, because the names for the arguments aren't actually required. You can also just write GitHub Action with OctoKit and 200. That's also gonna work. I think if you actually
look at
that, it figures it out.
JetBrains.
And I'll do you one better. Press Alt Enter or Option Enter.
Option Enter.
And you can say things like put arguments on one line again. Or if you navigate your cursor onto one of the so you can put arguments in separate lines again, but you can also press Alt Enter and say add argument name or something like that. Add title equals to argument. Yeah, exactly. See, there you go.
That is very nice.
It's all about.
Whoops, what did I just do? Oh boy.
You just added lazy initialization.
So what I wanted was, this is very cool. I like this. I like that a lot. And so we can kind of split that up and then.
Yeah. So in
separate lines, was it?
This is like your entry point to all the cool things in the Kotlin world, or just generally in our products, is the Alt Enter shortcut. Because it's like our IntelliSense actions, right?
Mm-hmm.
It kind of shows you everything you can do. So it's really useful, just kind of pressing Alt Enter every once in a while, because it's just like you maybe you learn something new, maybe the IDE knows something better than you do. By the way, of course, navigation also works in these kind of things. So if you wonder, like if you have episode. And you're wondering like, where's that defined? You can click on the word episode with command. So if you do a command click on episode, it's going to send you to line 9. It's not very far, and you can also click on that episode in line 9 again. And that's, right now we're only using it once, but if you have multiples, it's going to show you every single point.
It's also kind of nice. Just telling me that it's the only time it's used.
Yep.
I get a lot of anxiety in projects when I go to modify a data structure or something, and then I'm like, okay, so I need to go find every instance of this. Just having the IDE say, hey, this is only used once. Don't worry, friend. Everything's fine.
But don't worry, because in Kotlin you're not changing things like that anyway. For example, let's not call it episode. Let's call it podcast episode. Just add podcast to the front of this. And don't move the cursor now.
Okay.
You see the little R with the little pencil?
Yeah.
So this is what we call, this is one of our refactorings. You can click on this, and you can say rename, and all the instances. And of course, it's not very impressive if you just have one instance. But if you have 1,000 classes across 1,000,000 files, it's going to update every single one of them. It's going to be up to date again.
That's slick. Okay. All right.
And by the way, even if you're getting out of this after this and you're never touching Kotlin JS again, we have the same thing for TypeScript and Webstorm. This also works for TypeScript. So, yeah. Cool. So we've created our first podcast episode. Maybe we should create can you add one or two more? Just so we have we can create a little collection out of them afterwards.
Yeah. Let's just do. Oh, that doesn't do what I want. Let's do this. And then let's see. Just count backward. So we've got one more here. That's 199, and then we've got one more with prototyping with Framer. Get that one in here. And all right, so here's our 3 episodes. By
the way, I guess it's not really worth mentioning since you kind of did it intuitively, and I guess coming from scripting languages makes a lot of sense. Unlike Java, Kotlin has these kind of top-level properties where you can just, you write just a thing in a file and it's going to be fine. And you can also just add multiple classes to the same file. Again, if you write Java, 1 class per file, that's the hard limit. They don't want you doing it any other way.
Oh.
So yeah, for small prototyping stuff, it's amazing, honestly.
I actually was unaware that you couldn't do that in Java, and I'm very glad that's not a rule here. yeah, you're not missing out. Trust me. So let's put those in a list, shall we? So let's do it.
So you can create a val episodes maybe, and you say equals list of capital O.
Like that?
Not capital L.
Okay.
It's just a function invocation. And then you pass in as parameters our 3 episodes we have.
There's 98, 99, 200.
Wonderful. Okay. So now we have a bunch of episodes, right? And they're all in a list. Now, the fun thing is this. We have, Kotlin is a statically typed language, right? But we have, like many other modern languages, type inference. Notice how you did not have to specify that this is a list of podcast episodes.
Mm-hmm.
You just say I want a list of these elements. And yeah, so in fact, if you want to the IDE can tell you even more things about your code than what it currently does.
Okay.
So if you want to, we can turn that on in the IDE for a second just to see it.
Sure.
So if you go to the Intellij Preferences, which is in the top bar somewhere, Intellij Idea, and then Preferences, and you type Kotlin in the search bar, that's probably the easiest way. There's going to be, and on the left side, there's something called inlay hints, almost all the way at the bottom. Inlay hints Kotlin. Yep, and now you can you can go through each category and make ticks in every single location, and we will see the full power of these things. It's very funny because some of my colleagues hate it when their IDE adds a bunch of extra information. But now you can see it inferred that this is a list of podcast episode. It knows the type.
Oh, yeah. Okay. And that is really handy. I can see, I get grumpy about TypeScript sometimes, but this part, being able to see exactly what you're doing is very, I get why people are so all in on strongly typed languages.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly love it. By the way, short note, probably you force a habit, but we do not have semicolons in Kotlin. I mean, you can do them, but they don't really matter.
How dare I?
I'm just saying, How do you feel about semicolons in JavaScript, Jason?
I'm a believer.
Okay, it's good to know.
I feel like I just got judged.
No, I'm just always curious, honestly, because I don't do a lot of JavaScript development. So it's always interesting to see people advocating for the one, the other. It's holy wars all over the place.
My take on it is if there's anything that has an edge case, I will just do the part that doesn't have an edge case. Like if you always add a semicolon, there's never an edge case. If you don't add semicolons, there are like 1 or 2 edge cases, and it's like one less thing for me to remember. So why not just do the thing that makes me not think?
Fair enough. Okay, so you know what? Let's just go ahead and let's just put these 3 things into our page, shall we?
Let's do it.
Okay, so we're gonna write our first. Well, first of all, do you want to do just like 3 p tags, or do you actually want to have like an unordered list? Either way is fine. We can just adjust the say hello function to.
Let's see. We've already done a div and a paragraph, so let's do that unordered list.
Okay, so just how do you write an unordered list in HTML? It's
All
UL,
right? So
right?
I'm gonna do it like this. I've got my UL HTML element.
Just press enter, exactly.
Inside, I want to do a list item.
Yep.
That's an HTML element.
Yep.
Okay, but then this part, so what I want to happen here is I want some kind of a logical loop, right? Like I want to be able to say for each episode, create a list item.
Right. So do you believe in for each loops, or do you believe in functional style for each?
I believe in the power of love, so I'm down for whatever you're more excited about. I think I personally would probably do like a functional for each, but I'm on board with whatever.
Let's do a functional for each.
All right.
So let's get into the scope of the UL.
Scope of the UL.
Yeah. So because we want to we want to repeat the li item, right? And then we'll just do episodes dot for each. Click that, and you get a block. That block gets an implicitly named parameter, as you can see. This is why I love these hints, right? Because it gets an it. That's a podcast episode. So now we can to add a string to this, exactly, you do a plus.
Is that it?
Yeah. Yeah, if you just want to have the title, that's it.
How about, okay, so now if I want to do the ID, so I would do it ID.
Yeah, plus a space.
Like that?
Plus, yeah, and then probably you're going to have to, we're statically typed, so you're going to have to call a toString on the ID. Oh my God.
Thank you for the sub, Cassidy.
I love you, Cassidy. It's long time follower.
Did I screw something up? Wait, what's it doing? Illegal state exception. What have I done?
That's just because it keeps compiling in the background, I think.
This is still showing as red. Unsolved reference.
I can't believe I'm in kind of in the proximity of Cassidy, to be honest. I genuinely like such a bright star on my otherwise mediocre Twitter timeline. Generally.
Stop it. She's going to be insufferable later. Like, she's just going to be strutting around. Like, we already... Yeah, it's going to... No, I'm kidding. She's the best. Okay, so something I have done is wrong here, and I'm sure that it's something simple, but it does not like this concatenation.
Try to put the whole thing in parentheses, like after the first plus.
Oh, it looks happy now.
Okay. So what's happening here is we have this funny thing where we're kind of the errors you're seeing down there is because it does the incremental compilation or the hot reloading, right? So it tries to do it, it fails because your code is broken.
Got it.
Yeah. Okay. So now that works. So the reason why we needed to add parentheses here is because we're kind of overloading the unary plus operator. And when you don't have parentheses, it's like, well, I have a plus in front, I have a plus in the back. Like, what do you want from me? Right? Does that make sense?
Yes. No.
Okay. No? Okay.
Maybe say that one more time.
All right. So what we do... So the problem is this, right? Like behind the scenes, what happens here is you have some kind of builder function, right? You have something that builds HTML text at the end of the day.
Right.
And what we need to do for that is we need to kind of, like, if you just put a string in there, the programming language looks at it, it's like, okay, here's a string. You don't want me to do anything with it. I'll just chuck it. I don't need it, right? So we need to do some kind of invocation. The shortest invocation we could have thought of was the unary plus operator. It's a design choice.
I got you.
Right. But yeah, so if you have a plus in front and a plus in the back, it's like, okay, now you're kind of doing like, it gets kind of confused with operator precedence. Because one of them means concatenation, one of them means kind of invocation.
And so what we're doing here is we're changing the order of operations so that it puts these with precedence.
We make sure. But to be fair, this is probably not the code you would want to write anyway. Because so go to like somewhere in the middle of this, and just press Alt-Enter again. And ideally, this has convert concatenation to template.
Oh, that's way easier than what I just did.
Yep. And now I think you can even press Alt-Enter again, and it's going to probably tell you that it can remove the parentheses. You might have to remove unnecessary parentheses. Look at that. And that is probably how you would want to write it actually.
Well, that's cleaner than what I did. So this is great. I mean, this is exactly what we want. We've got an unordered list in here. It's pulling in data, and all of that felt pretty straightforward. I love that it's showing these kind of the title and IDs, so I'm not necessarily having to write this code. I'm able to just know that it's true. All good things here. I'm feeling pretty happy with the setup.
Yeah. But we can do a couple more things to kind of show off the power of the Kotlin standard library, right? Because this is one of the things that I've always found so confusing. If I have a list and I want to do really simple operations, it's unnecessarily hard in JavaScript. Like, how do you shuffle the list of 3 episodes that we have here?
So before we do that, I have one quick question from the chat, which is when we're doing you said like when we're putting these in, we're overloading the unary operator here. And
you can even command click on the plus, by the way. You can see the implementation that's under it.
Oh, actually, let's do that because that was what the question was, is what is happening. So we're just running the text function when we do this.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So CJ, that's what's happening here is we are basically using the plus as a shortcut to call the text function.
Yeah. And it's a unary plus, so it does not receive kind of a left-hand side. It's just unary. Yeah. So it just takes one argument. Got
it. Okay. That makes sense. I'm with it. Okay, so now let's do some operations on our object here. So you said shuffle is the first one.
Yeah, sure. So how would you intuitively expect to be able to shuffle?
I have a theory.
Boom.
Is it?
That's it. Just give it a couple of seconds. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that how every language should do it? I genuinely believe that. I've
absolutely written a lot of very convoluted shuffle code, so I'm pretty happy. Also, I think it shuffled into exactly the right order, which is pretty funny.
You can just reload the page on the right, though, manually as well, if you want to. That's the problem with 3 elements. Yeah, there you go. 3 elements don't really have that many permutations, do they? It's like 6, right?
But so this is perfect. Like this is exactly what we were after. We've got a shuffled list, and I had to write one word that is a word that I understood, which that makes me feel pretty good.
Right? We could do the same thing for like filtering the list.
Okay, so let's do this. I'm going to start typing filter. All right, so filter.
Yeah, press enter again. It's going to give you a little bit of extra help. Look at that. You get an it. That's a podcast episode, and it asks you to provide a predicate that returns a Boolean. So you can just say it ID, not equals single equals sign is enough. Yep.
Is that it? Am I done?
Yeah, you're done. Just give it some time to reload.
I am. There
you go.
Didn't realize that I was going to be a Kotlin expert so fast.
Yeah, honestly. But isn't this the greatest thing? That's exactly how I felt when I first touched the language. I was like, I can be productive with this. Like, realistically, engineers who've done an object-oriented programming language with a little bit of functional before, and they can be productive within 3 days. They write production apps within 3 days. Generally.
This, I mean, it is definitely more intuitive than I expected. I come in, I haven't written Java before. So all I
now
really,
you never will.
Now you never will. Fair enough. But because I was worried when I heard that Kotlin was based on Java. I was worried about verbosity, and I was worried about needing to know a lot about the standard library and a kind of a lot of contextual information, because that's what you hear about when you start looking at writing Java, and when you hear people talk about their issues with it. So this is a pleasant surprise to see that I don't need to memorize a bunch of stuff, that we have the fact that this is kind of solving a lot of these problems with good autocomplete and good type hinting. That's really handy.
And I genuinely think one of the biggest things is just like a super well thought out standard library. Like it's generally there are like 95% of the use cases you can probably think of, there's a standard library function for it. Like if you want to have a map function and it takes like an extra index, you can have that. If you want to fold, there's no problem. But even for things like, oh, I have a sorted list, I need to do a binary search on it because linear search is too fast. What do? You do .binary search, and you provide the the predicate, and that's it. Like it's weird because on the one hand it feels magical, but on the other hand it never is. It's just like it just is the thing. Funny enough, once again you can actually you can command click on filter, because all of this is just our standard library, and you can see how it's implemented. Oh, okay, it's implemented as filter 2, so you can command click on filter 2, so we can see an actual implementation here. And you can see here, while it does a for loop, it's like, okay, if the predicate's true, then we'll add it to the destination. That's how a filter works. And now here's the kicker, right? If you look in line 824, you can see the inline modifier, right? So this means you can write functions in Kotlin that have this modifier, which means instead of being called at runtime, this code will kind of be copy pasted in the position of where you've originally invoked the function. So even though we've written filter, what actually it compiles down to is like just a for loop with like destination where it's going to add it.
Okay, I get that.
And this is elegant because this also means you can write your own collection operations. Like nothing's stopping you from like writing your own funky filter.
So if I wanted to do something like fun inline add func, and let's see if I can write a function based on just inference here.
A lot of generic types in this one, I'll give you that. But
okay, so
what do you want to build?
Well, I was thinking
you want to build a function that adds func to some string, or
I was just gonna like add a property that says func. So if I want a generic type, which would be any collection, I assume that I can just use this one.
This one is actually for I think so. I actually this one is one too complicated. You can just say iterable of t, because this one is the copy to function. So
like that.
Almost. So without the outer brackets. What are those called?
We call them pointy boys brackets? In here.
What do you call them?
Pointy boys.
Pointy boys. We have pointy boys, curly boys.
Pointy boys, curly boys, and round boys.
What are the square ones?
Square boys.
Oh, okay. Bracky boys. Okay. So first of all, to help the IDE along a little bit, you need to change the order of it's inline fun, not fun inline.
Oh, got it. Inline fun, and that's what we're having is inline fun.
Exactly.
Okay.
And one more thing you need to do is you need to, once again, this is kind of goofy, but you need to tell it the generic type parameter once more. So you need to say inline fun brackets. Sorry, pointy boys t iterable t.
Like that?
Yep, like that.
Okay.
Now you have a function called add func.
Okay, looking back at my collections here, I get...
So keep in mind right now, you are right now writing like an extension function, right? So this is something you can call on something else,
right?
Which means you already have an implicit parameter, this, which is like what you call it on.
Oh,
does that make sense?
So I'm already going to have a this, so then I don't need anything.
Yeah, you
don't. And I can just do like a this dot func equals true.
Yeah. Now you just need to somehow. Well, it's first of all, you need a couple of parentheses there. No biggie, round boys. But the other thing is, of course, now you have a. Well, we're a statically typed language, right? So how do you know that?
Right. So I need to add to my episode type.
Yeah, but we can also, so we can go one further. We can create an interface, right? Okay. We can create an interface funky.
Okay.
And then we'll just define this on, so you just say interface funky. And that one provides a var func. So not val, but var, because this one, now we want to be able to write to it. And you say : Boolean. And now you say, okay, so anything that implements this interface needs to provide a func variable, which is a Boolean. So now the next step is probably that we want to say, okay, instead of on a generic parameter, I can see a C# developer in the chat who wants to name it iFunky. So instead of the generic parameter, I guess now we're looking at only iterables that of type funky. So instead of a T, this is just funky. And now we don't even need this one anymore. No, we don't even need that one anymore.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
Yeah. And now we are confused because we don't know why that doesn't work. Give me a second here. You have an iterable of oh yeah, because you still have an iterable, right? So you have a list of funkies now. So probably like you want to do this for each of your elements.
Got it. Yeah, for each.
Yeah, look at you. You're a natural.
Okay. All right. And this, so now I get to add my func, but we have a problem, which is that my episodes don't implement the funky interface.
Right.
Can we make it? Is it going to break if I say implement funky? These would be invalid then, right? Because they don't have the required property.
Well, let's take it one step at a time, right?
Okay.
What do we want to do? We want to have the podcast episode implement funky. So let's go to the podcast episode.
Does order of declaration matter? Like, do I need to move this?
No, fortunately it doesn't. It's one of the beautiful things. So
nope,
what you actually do, so what you do is at the very end of the line, you do : funky. So both inheritance and
now it's mad.
What's the other thing called? Composition. So both inheriting and implementing interfaces works with the : and Kotlin. Still, same rules apply. You can inherit only from one thing. Yeah. Okay.
So now you're happy.
So what's the problem with this one? Hover over this. Yeah, it hides the member of the supertype funky. Because for all you know, you may have already had func in here, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it may have meant something completely different. So now you got to make it explicit that the func you mean here comes from your interface. You do that by just adding the override modifier. Again, I think it gives you like the little link if you just press add override modifier.
So, okay, I do Command-Shift-Enter.
I mean, you can just click the blue link, or once again, you can
Look
do
at
that.
It go. That's cool. Okay.
Yeah, and it shows you the next thing. It's like, oh, it's a val property, but we said we want to be able to change this, so it needs to be a var property. So we change it to var.
So I just basically you option shift enter your way to victory with Kotlin is what I'm seeing here.
And now all this code is red. You see all the little brackets that are red, and you see like in the right sidebar, you see the three little like red icons. Well, why is that? Well, you didn't pass a parameter. But we're not gonna pass that every single time, because by default nothing is funky. right? So we can just provide a default parameter. So you just do that by saying equals false.
Okay, all right. So let's expand this so we can see what's happening here. So we've got our podcast.
Or you could just, by the way, you could once again just press Alt-Enter and say put arguments in separate lines, I believe. Put parameters. You kind of, yep. That makes it a little bit more narrow.
Much easier to read then. And so now, we've got our title, ID, func.
And func.
You are not funky by default. It implements the interface of funky, and now we can put these together safely.
Yeah,
so we can see. This is also very nice that it does this.
Type checker says it's all good, man.
All right, let's save it.
And now we probably want to well, first of all, we want to actually make sure that this is actually the thing, right? We want to be able to print the funkiness. So probably want to add that to the list.
So let's add func. And
there's no return type. That's
got a problem.
Yep.
ToString, or does it ToString itself?
If you have it inside one of these fancy template literals, it's gonna ToString itself. It needs to be it.
Oh yeah.
And not is. And also we forgot a thing. Because right now we have like a call chain, but we're trying to add func to, like, that doesn't return anything, right?
Am I returning?
That probably wants to return the same iterable again.
Like that?
Wow, I think now we're... Okay, I think we're going to run into some funky generics in a second, but we'll see. Well, and now we just need to return this again. So just say return this. Return this. Yep. Okay, and now it's still broken. Why is it still broken?
Great question.
Well, if we scroll down, we'll see that, well, what do we get back? We get an it.func. We get something back that just implements the funky interface. At this point, we have lost the information that we're still episodes, right? Because all we say is like we only return something that has a property called func. Okay. That works.
You gonna do the thing? No, it doesn't like that. Unresolved reference. Because I'm just wrong. That's just me being bad at this. Okay. I don't see any errors anymore.
Yeah, this is looking good. Give it a moment to think about it.
Okay. So that did what we want. Now, now I want an if statement. So if it ID is 199, we'll do it func equals false. Else, I'm making some assumptions here.
Yeah, it's all good. You see this like tiny little shadow in the background?
Yep, it is not redundant if statement. What does that mean? Redundant if statement. Let's hit the button and see what happens. What?
Yeah.
Magic refactors.
We understand your code probably better than you do.
Clearly. All right, so then I'm going to drop this filter. And instead what we should see is that we should see true, false, true here if we do that.
So one of the things that we're also working on with the new compiler, by the way, is speeding up the iteration speed, or like this recompilation speed, which is going to take a bit.
Look at it go. Okay.
Look at that poor episode 199. Not funky.
That was one where it was just me by myself. There's zero chance that was going to be funky.
I see. Actually, question as someone who is not a native English speaker, is funky generally a good connotation or a bad connotation? Because I know something can smell funky. That's usually not a good thing. But I think generally, like, if music's funky, that's pretty good, right?
Yeah, I think it's like funky dances is really what we're thinking about here.
Okay, that sounds great. That's what I had in my mind as well. So cool, yeah. So So I think we've had one question in the chat, which was about immutability, because they were asking like if I don't like vars, I just like vals. And the answer to that is we have a fancy function. If you go up to your podcast episode again, and you annotate this class with the data keyword, so you call it data class, just at the very beginning, and then we go back into our funky loop. We can rewrite this to be. Actually, let's also make sure that the funky interface is now val. We're gonna rewrite this into immutability. Does that make sense?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So at this point, oh, I'm sorry. You need to change it into a val up there as well. Yeah, exactly.
Can I take out the default?
You can, but you don't. I'm not sure if we want to. Let's keep it in there for now.
Okay.
So let's go back to the little red squiggly that you can see in the right scroll bar. Exactly. So now it says, well, we can't reassign val.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're immutable. So immutability clearly means we need to switch from a for each to a map. That makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now we kind of need to create copies of. Yeah, exactly. That's good moves. Look at you.
Oh, but I'm still wrong.
It is still wrong, but that's fine, because now we get a podcast episode, and if you just type it inside, and then so we want to create a copy. So what do? We say .copy, and copy takes a bunch of arguments, all of which are optional. So we can use named arguments. We can just say func equals. Yep, and then we say we put that argument in there.
Oh,
yep.
Yeah, we want this one though.
Exactly. Boom, just like that.
And now it's happy again.
Yeah, and I can do you one better.
Okay.
You see how our whole function is just one statement?
Mm-hmm.
Go on the return. Press Alt-Enter. Convert to expression body. Press the delete key once. And now, well, it's still a bit wide, but now you can see that we're, instead of writing a body for the function, right? We're just saying this function is this expression that follows.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
That's slick. Okay, I get it. That's really nice. So that'd take a little. Yeah. So this is like a shorthand function
exactly.
to get mapping in my head.
Right. So whenever you have a function that's only a single statement, which often you do, because often you're just aliasing things or wiring up parameters or whatever, you can just say that function and then equals the other statement that it represents. And you don't even need to do the whole body return shenanigan. And you can even see that it infers the type again. So the list of podcast episode, it still says there.
Yeah.
Again, some people don't like this because it generates a lot of text, right? But I mean, I love it because this always gives me the confidence that my IDE understands what I'm doing. Like
I would agree. I think seeing what you have passed in, because at the end of the day, no matter how much we all think that we're geniuses, computers are going to understand the code better than we do. They interpret it. So having the computer tell you what you actually did is going to save me a lot of heartache, right? Of not, because I feel like many of the bugs that I've spent the most time on aren't obvious bugs. They're bugs where I was one level higher or lower in the scope than I needed to be, or I thought I was doing one thing and I was actually operating on like the original type, not the modified type or something like that. So this is definitely the sort of thing that can help me kind of save me from myself a little bit here.
Yeah,
so I see a lot
absolutely.
of value there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because at the end of the day, it's also not only that the compiler or that the computer understands our programs better. It's the interpretation of the computer that is the one that matters, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we mean one thing and the computer understands another, it's just going to explode. We don't really have a say in it. So me seeing kind of the compiler as like a co-pilot who constantly tells me like, okay, now you're in this scope. Now you have this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, after we turned this on, I'm not sure if you actually noticed, but you can see the implicit scopes of our domain-specific language. You can see that if you are inside a p tag, for example, that you have an implicit this, which is a p, and that if you are in a div, you have a this that's a div,
mm-hmm.
right? And because these also define the functions that that you would be allowed to call. Like on an A, you can add an href. On a p, you can't, because that doesn't make sense.
Right.
So
that's pretty slick. All right.
Yeah.
Well, so we've got about 10 minutes left. So is there anything that you want to make sure we cover before we start doing links and all that good stuff?
It's a good question. Let me think for a second. I mean, we can open a React project with Kotlin.js just for a moment and just look at the default of what that generates.
Yeah, let's do it. So I'm going to save this, and let's create a new...
Don't worry, by the way. IntelliJ always autosaves constantly for you.
Oh, that's nice.
And there's and now, of course, the question is like, oh, but what if I made a mistake? You also have something called local history, which is like a Git history, but it's like all the changes you made over the last hour, even if you didn't check them in. That also saves a lot of butts, let me tell you.
That's really nice. Okay, so I've created a project called Kotlin.js React. I'm choosing React application, the same JDK that we had before.
All
so
good.
I'm going to save that, and then we'll go here.
Take whatever you want.
Yeah, I'm going to skip all these because we aren't really going to be building anything. We're just going to be looking at it. So let's finish, and let's open a new window. All right, so inside here we've got, and you see here where it's doing the Gradle build, that's the stuff that I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
So this is all happening in the background. So we've got our client.kt, which, let's see, so we get into render, document, and window, and we get the element by root, class, Kotlin.js, all right? And let's look at React. Okay, so in here we've got React, builder, component, prop, state, div, and input. All right, so we're specifying welcome props. Mm-hmm. So this is like a prop types.
Exactly.
Then we've got state, our state. Okay. And JS export is so that we can do like an export as a named class of welcome, so I can import welcome from whatever.
Yeah, so JS export is so that React, which is an inherently JavaScript framework, understands that this is a component, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Then
so
I've
that's kind of the interop surface a little bit.
Got my init. We're going to drop in the welcome state with the props, which come in from here.
Yeah, constructor argument, exactly.
Then we're going to override, because this implements the component interface.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then we use the render function. And the render function is going to return a div with an input, some values, on change. Okay, yeah. I get it. I follow this.
And you can kind of see again, like it's it's React, right? So again, in the div, we have a hello with just we reference directly the state.name. We don't do any kind of funky binding or whatever. It's all like reactive from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
So if you stop the development server in the other project, you can kick off this one. Either is fine. Browser development mode is just a bit faster. That's the trade-off between file size and compilation speed.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, I just realized that this is all class-based components, which I'm not sure how you feel about those, but we also have support for hooks.
Excellent.
So those all work.
I was going to ask, unfortunately, we don't have time, so this could potentially be a follow-up episode, too, to just do some React and Kotlin.js. I think that could be fun. So let me reload this. There it is.
I think we also should do an episode on Webstorm, actually, now thinking about it, because it seems like there's a lot of stuff that people could learn from just getting to know a development environment a little bit better.
Absolutely, yeah.
Even if they're TypeScript, yeah. So
But
yeah,
I think
you can see.
this is great. I think there's some, there's a lot of potential in this, and I can see the benefits of the type safety. I can see the benefits of how this would, once you get the hang of the syntax, this feels like a pretty well defined way to go about this. So I definitely see the appeal. I'm going to say I'm cautiously sold on this. I think it's a good thing to kind of dig into. So for somebody who wants to take this to the next level, they want to dig in further, where would you recommend somebody goes if they want to learn more about Kotlin and Kotlin.js?
So I think a great entry point, first of all, well, it's just kotlinlang.org, right? That's just kind of where the whole story starts. But one link which I think we should make about 10 times bigger and in like Comic Sans red on white background or something is the play button on the top right. So if you click on that one, first of all, you get an IDE like right in your web browser, so you can just start typing right away, which is an absolute masterpiece. Unfortunately, you don't get as much of assistance as you get in the local IDE, but you can do that, and it is going to work, hopefully, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
But more important are the other 3 tabs we have at the top there. So I usually recommend people who have programming experience to start with our koans or our cones. I'm not sure how those are actually to be pronounced. At the very right. And these are kind of like small self-contained samples / challenges that each introduce a single Kotlin concept. Anything from classes to functions to extending to scope to whatever. So you can go through these. I think you can also like save your progress as you go through them, and you can kind of get like an overview. So if it gives you like a small challenge, it tells you like where to look in the docs, and then you can kind of go from there.
Yeah.
If you are a newbie beginner programmer, then I would recommend the book Atomic Kotlin, which was written by one of my colleagues, Sveta Isakova, together with Bruce Eckel. I think the first couple of chapters may be also free online. I'm not sure.
Here it is. Okay.
Yeah, this is the one. Exactly.
All right.
And apart from that, if you want to dive deeper into things, on play.kotlinlang.org, we have the hands-on labs, which is one of the other tabs. Where you can find things like building web applications with React and Kotlin.js, or creating HTTP APIs, all kinds of things, right? Not just Kotlin.js, but the Kotlin all over the place. I think there's some stuff on mobile there as well. A bunch of different topics.
Yeah. Well, great.
And apart from that, I think the only thing like our marketing department would kill me if I didn't shout it out. You can go to youtube.com/Kotlin, which is our YouTube channel that we started like 5 months ago. So if you have not seen enough of my face yet, I'm there on like 20 different videos at least. Yeah, and we have videos about the recent updates, but I actually have a show called Standard Library Safari, where I take people through each kind of subsection of the standard library. We talk about lists, maps, sets, and all the cool stuff that you might not know from other languages. So kind of really like diving deeper into this.
Nice. Very cool. All right. So with that, everyone, make sure you go follow. Yeah, check it out on YouTube. Go follow Sebastian on Twitter. And remember, you have been able to follow along. Let's see. Where are the? Oh no, I lost the captions again. Okay, I'm not going to look that up again. But the captions have been with us. I apologize for breaking the website. We've had Rachel with us all day from Whitecoat Captioning, and that is made possible by Netlify, Fauna, Auth0, and Hasura, who are all kicking in to make the show more accessible. While you're checking out the site, make sure you go and look at the schedule. We've got some really good stuff coming up. Rob Sutter is going to show us how to do some cool things in Fauna. It's been a while since we talked about Fauna, and then we're going to have Mark Erickson here to talk about modern Redux. So we're going to look at Redux Toolkit, which he says is a big leap forward from if you wrote Redux years ago. The difference is stark. I've heard a lot of people saying good things. I haven't seen it yet, so I'm really looking forward to checking it out. We've got even more coming up. I've got a bunch of these that I need to get up on the website that I haven't done yet. So maybe I'll fix the website and update the schedule all at the same time. You can always get notified of new episodes by clicking this Add on Google Calendar button. I would like to have you click that. It is fun. You can also follow on Twitch to get notified when we go live. Make sure you leave the subscription bell thing on. So, okay, let me just smash that like button and ring that bell. Okay, thanks, y'all. So with that, we're going to go find somebody to raid. Thank you so much for hanging out. Thank you, Sebi, so much for teaching us today. We will see you all next time.
See you, everyone.